The state regulates everything. What you eat, what you smoke, what you say. But there is one thing it never could control, and that terrifies it. You regulate my labor, regulate my land, regulate the words I say, regulate where I stand. You tax my income, license my profession, govern every room, but you think you're gonna regulate what happens in the tomb. You are not God, never were, never will be. You're a bureaucracy with a flag and a militia. You didn't author my existence, didn't write the code. You got no jurisdiction over where this ends, I'm told. The right to die was mine before your constitution dried, before your borders got drawn, before your first law was signed. Pre-political, pre-social contract, pre-everything you built, my death was always mine, intact. Stateless death, the state don't own it. Stateless death, never did. Stateless death, you can legislate everything, but you cannot legislate this. Stateless death, stay out of it. Stateless death, it isn't yours. The one thing that falls outside your walls was always mine before. Forcing someone to live against their will has a name. It's not governance, it's not mercy, it's not compassion for their pain. You put the chains on, dress them up in sacred text, called the prisoner a citizen, and called the self-progress. The slave owner said, I'm protecting what you need. The state says the same thing with the same hands on the same leash. You don't get to imprison me in the body and call that care. You don't get to lock the exit and pretend the door ain't there. Every day you force me here against my stated will is a day of unpaid slavery, and you're sending me the bill. Stateless death, the state don't own it. Stateless death, never did. Stateless death, you can legislate everything, but you cannot legislate this. Stateless death, stay out of it. Stateless death, it isn't yours. The one thing that falls outside your walls was always mine before. Let me be precise about what you're claiming. You're claiming authority over the interior of a human being, over the most intimate decision a conscious creature can make. You're claiming that your legitimacy, which rests on nothing but force, extends into the private sovereign territory of a person's own ending. That is not governance, that is not law, that is not a social contract, that is a God complex wearing a gavel, and you are not God, you are not even close. You are a temporary arrangement of violence and paperwork, and death was here before you and will be here after you dissolve. You can pass the law, you can staff the hotline, you can criminalize the doctors, you can draw your bottom line. But when a person has decided in the sovereign of their mind, there is no court, no Congress, no committee left to find. That is standing in that chamber, that is clearance at that door. The state ends at the skin and never had a claim for more. You're not protecting life, you're protecting your authority. The fiction at your reach has no ceiling and no floor, but this is the ceiling, this is where your power breaks. A stateless death is the one right no legislation takes. Stateless death, you never owned it. Stateless death, never will. Stateless death, write all the laws you want. A sovereign will is sovereign still. Stateless death, stay out of it. Stateless death, it isn't yours. The one thing that falls outside your walls was always mine. Before your first God, before your first flag, before your first God, before any of it. The state is not God. It just acts like it. And death is the one place that exposes the lie. Every time.
Hi, everybody. So, I had someone ask me whether life abolitionism is only against procreation under the state or whether it is against procreation in general. Now, I have already addressed this several times. I've read my book. They asked me in the comment section. I can't really respond to a complicated question like that in the comment section. I think it's better to ask me when I'm doing a live stream so I can actually explain it. It's just too much. I wrote a whole book about it. But this wasn't the only person, because the question he asked had likes. So I guess other people want to know the same question. And even Danny Sean was asking me the question. So I guess I need to clarify what life abolitionism is about. Now, the book is Whose Life Is It? The Moral Debt for Life Enslavement. It's a lot more complicated than basic antinatalism. I just want to, let me go to the definitions first. And I'm not going to go through all of them because I've already gone through most of the stuff. Now, okay, I'm going to start with life slavery. That's where I'm going to start. Life slavery, a systemic condition in which biological parents, life enslavers, impose existence on a person without their consent, and then the master state forces that person to continue existing for the benefit of society through prohibition on the right to opt out. Life slavery is distinguished from chattel slavery, where the master owns the person outright, and wage slavery, where economic necessity compels labor, in that it operates through comprehensive interference with disposal rights. The master state monopolizes disposal rights, prohibiting the life slave from leaving while extracting value from their captivity. The life slave does not benefit from his or her own existence. Parents benefit emotionally. The master state benefits economically and politically, and society benefits from the life slave's forced participation. Life slavery is more insidious than other forms because it operates through paternalistic deception. The claim that forced continuation serves the life slave's interest rather than the interest of those who benefit from from the life slave's captivity. I'm not going to go through it, but chapter 10 addresses antinatalism specifically. So antinatalism is absorbed into life abolitionism. I did read that there is a live stream size video of me going through chapter 10. So if you're interested, I believe that's already on my page. So I've already gone through all of this extensively. This is not basic antinatalism. I'm focusing on rights. That's the reason why I'm focusing on the state. I'm not saying that it is okay to procreate if it's not under a state. The point is that when you procreate under the state and you're a citizen, you don't own your life, you don't have disposal rights, you're forced to continue to exist against your will while the public and the state extracts value from your involuntary existence. So you don't have the right to opt out, you're trapped in perpetuity. They're going to gaslight you and say that it's for your own good. Meanwhile, you have to pay for your involuntary existence and then reaping all the benefits. Life abolitionism is not about just harm. It is it's a lot more nuance. It is a synergy between anarchy, antinatalism, socialism, and what was the fourth one? Gosh, I'm just drawing a blank. Anarchy, antinatalism, socialism. Anyway, the point is, you don't own your life, and the proof that you don't own your life is that you don't have disposal rights. If you own property, you would have the right to dispose what you own. You don't have disposal rights, which means that the state owns you. That is distinct from procreating in a state of nature. In a state of nature, you would at least own your life. There is no slavery where there is no master. So is it okay to procreate in a state of nature? No. But it's not slavery because you don't have a master. When you procreate under the state, you do have an actual master who actually owns you, who is interfering with your disposal rights and forcing you to exist against your will. As I have said before, procreating in a state of nature is no different from an animal procreating. It is unfortunate, but it's not slavery. You're not forced to pay for your involuntary existence. You're not forced to obey unjust laws. At the end of the day, I know there are new people coming to the channel, but I have, the book is here. I have gone through it. I've tried to explain it repeatedly. And I really just would like to move forward. I just can't keep going back. You know, I have other content that I would like to address, and I do want to explain it because I want people to understand what it's about. But at the same time, I have already explained it, and the book is available. At the end of the day, I don't understand. I know what I know. I don't know what other people don't know. So I'm speaking as plainly as I possibly can. When you say stateless, do you mean the state exists and an individual is born off the grid, or a condition where there is no state present in the earth? No. The point is that my framework calls for the decriminalization of medical assistance in dying. It's not calling for legalization. The state is not involved at all. This is a natural right. This is a pre-political right, which the state has no legitimate authority to interfere with. So when I say stateless, I'm saying the state needs to stay out of it. The state, our rights don't come from the state. Our rights don't come from the Constitution. The Ninth Amendment says the enumeration of certain rights shall not disparage other rights retained by the people. So the Constitution is an enumeration of certain rights. See, this is the thing. When I go all legalistic, people get bored and say, "Oh, why are you doing that? That's so boring." But then when I don't do it, then nobody understands what I'm talking about. So I don't know. I can't win. I know y'all people don't want to hear that, but you need to understand the reason why you don't have that right. And I'm actually surprised because there's some anti-natalists in the community who I thought were, I'm pretty pessimistic. I think it's really surface level. But some of them seem very, I don't know, because I was really surprised that some of them actually want this. Because they're not as pessimistic as I am. They seem actually happy. They seem like they enjoy life. And then when they say, "Oh, I wish this would end," I'm like, I didn't know that you felt that way. And apparently, that's the difference between my philosophy and these other philosophies. None of them have actual remedies. They're just talking about ethics. They're talking about shoulds. That's a part of it. Yes, people should abstain from procreation, but they don't give a shit. They don't care about your rights. They don't care about your misery. They just want to extract. So they're not going to do the right thing. They think they did you a favor. They have manipulated you to think that you owe society. And I'm exposing it. I'm saying that this is a lie. We don't owe you. You owe us. You're saying that our lives benefit society, benefits the state has an interest in our lives. We'll pay for it. So you either have two choices. Either give us the right to medical assistance in dying, or pay for our voluntary existence. You don't get to force us to exist against our will and then also force us to pay for it. If you have such an interest in our lives, then pay for it. Now, again, you guys, For the people who have actually read the book, they actually understand it. The people who actually took the time to do the work, they actually do come to me with serious questions, and I feel like I can engage with them on substance. But you do have to have a baseline understanding of what this philosophy is about. It's not just basic antinatalism. It's just not. Um, Antinatalism is a correct starting point, but it does have limitations. It absolutely does. It doesn't do anything to liberate those who are currently here. It's just operating on shoulds that people should just not procreate. They don't care. I mean, there's no other way to say they don't care. I don't know how many times they, okay, I'm sorry, y'all. The fourth component that I couldn't remember is pro-mortalism. It's elective pro-mortalism, that if you want to have medical assistance, then you should have that. And that part of it is mostly covered by David Hume. Let me go back to the definitions. I have charts. I have all kinds of stuff in this book. It's all there. So, life abolitionism is the practical framework for ending life slavery through organized resistance across 5 fronts: legislative action, judicial challenges, civil disobedience, asylum claims, and cultural transformation. Life abolitionism transforms academic antinatalist arguments into concrete political demands with enforceable consequences. It pursues 2 distinct abolitions: ending state life slavery, which is the immediate priority. And by ending state life slavery, I'm meaning ending the prohibition on medical assistance in dying, and then ending procreative life slavery, which is the ultimate goal. So it actually goes backwards. It doesn't start with ending procreation first. No, it actually starts with decriminalizing medical assistance in dying first, because once that is decriminalized, then parents or life enslavers are not necessarily guaranteed a return on their investment. Now they are disincentivized to procreate because they don't care. They only care about what is in their rational self-interest. They have detached themselves from their children. Their children's suffering and misery has nothing to do with them. So there has to be consequences. Again, I've already covered all this, but there's other criteria that they have to raise their children properly, give them some life skills. They have to leave them an inheritance. They forfeit their own right to opt out. Let me go through some of these comments, because I don't know what other people don't. So I hope that I'm answering your question. I just don't know what needs to be clarified. But I really wanted to cover another topic, but I feel like I have to go back to the drawing board and explain something that, anyway. Cheers to another day on this earth as we vibrate against the draconian rhythm. I don't support enslaving anyone to this world with or without the state. Okay, but technically, if there is no state or if there is no actual master, then it's not actual slavery. So if you procreate in a state of nature, who is the master? Who actually owns you? Again, I'm focusing on legal rights. That you have a natural right to self-ownership, and you have a right to dispose what you own. So if you own yourself, then this is the reason why antinatalism is not going anywhere, by the way. Because there is no strategy, there is no activism. It's just, well, most people don't even take it seriously because they think that we're just whining. And I'm tired of that. So we really need to up the ante, use sophisticated legal arguments, and basically outsmart them. I'm not sure what that means. How do you vibrate lettuce? Why can't I scroll down? Oh gosh, I knew that shit was going to happen. Ugh. I need to go back to using StreamYard because this is always happening. Let me go back and try to fix this. Now, let me see if I can go to the next comment without it going crazy on me. Every time I try to scroll down, it starts doing crazy stuff. Why subject a being to leave eternal perfection just to fulfill selfish desires? Well, I think your question answers it because it is selfish, because they don't care, because it benefits them. That's why. They don't have any empathy. It just is what it is. It's the most cruel imposition imaginable. And okay, I'm just going to keep going. Because really what I'm interested in questions for, this is really about me clarifying what life abolitionism is about for those who don't grasp the entire framework. What I'm saying is every being born forever loses eternal non-existence. Even if they die, they still lost. But that's you. Okay. You have empathy. You want to spare someone else from suffering and dying. That's not how these people think. They don't have any empathy. They're morally bankrupt. The only thing that's going to work for them is consequences. And if they procreate, if they create a child, because it is entirely transactional, they do expect to receive a return on their investment. But if there is laissez-faire medical assistance on demand, then they're not guaranteed a return on their investment. They would procreate knowing that their child could avail themselves of medical assistance once they turn 18, and all the money, all the time and energy they put in raising that child goes down the drain. You can scream to them about ethics till the cows come home. They don't care. They've already told us in no uncertain terms that they don't care. They don't give a fuck. So the ethical arguments, the appeal to ethics, are falling on deaf ears. You need to get the right to medical assistance first. No, it doesn't. It doesn't really fix it because you still had years of suffering up until that point. But it changes the whole paradigm about how people look at procreation. About how everybody is basically shamed into silence. We're not even allowed to talk about how miserable we are because we're told to call 988. You need help. Everybody is so dismissive. Yeah. Once it's decriminalized, they're going to get help. They're going to get real help, not the bullshit counseling that they're talking about. Oh, now it's starting to, okay, it's starting to freeze, and I have a feeling that countdown bullshit is going to come on again. Okay, if they refuse MAID, they need to roll out the social, that's part of my framework. That if they refuse MAID, then they have to pay for all of your living expenses, your housing, your transportation, your healthcare, your education, all of it. And I don't think they would have any good argument against paying for it. It is unjust enrichment. How do living beings come from non-existence out of nothing? No, I don't. I don't understand your questions. We come into existence because parents impose life on us. That's how we come into existence. Yes, we existed in some other form, in a sperm and an egg or cells, but they are not sentient, so they're not ethically or morally relevant. I still think even without the state, it's still itself a slavery system. We are slaves to food, sleep, hygiene, and health. Okay, I'm not sure how that gets you any rights, though. I'm not sure what that does to change your legal status. They don't care about that. I don't. I really can't emphasize enough how much they don't give a fuck. Yes, it is. Wait. The legal definition of slave. Okay, wait. See, there's so much that I need to explain. Let me go back to my definition of slavery because I think that's probably a good place to start. Um, See, I've already covered this stuff, and I'm glossing over it because I'm thinking people already know it. But let me see if I can. Ugh. Okay, there we are. This is the definition of slavery from Plessy versus Ferguson. I'm going by legal definitions. I'm not just going by what people feel. Okay, slavery implies involuntary servitude, a state of bondage, the ownership of mankind as chattel, or at least the control of the labor and services of one man for the benefit of another, and the absence of a legal right to the disposal of his own person, property, and services. So, going by that legal definition of slavery, procreating in a state of nature does not meet the addition of slavery. It did. First of all, who would you even sue in a state of nature? Who would own you? Who would owe you damages? Nobody. You have to have damages for any claim. Nobody would control your labor in a state of nature. Nobody would benefit from your existence in a state of nature. Yes, it's still unethical, but it's not a cognizable cause of action. The absence of a legal right to the disposal of his own person, property, and services. In the state of nature, you would not have that. There would be no interference with your disposal rights of your own person, property, and services. Again, I've already explained it. I feel like I can't really do it justice because I don't have sufficient time to explain. Like, there's chapter 2, well, actually, chapter 1. Oh gosh, I don't. I just don't think that. Let me stop. I'm trying to be patient, but I think people really need to read the book, and then I can actually respond to more pointed questions. But I can't really explain the entire book right now on the fly. Like, we don't know how humanity came about, but we do know what we can do to prevent it from continuing. How the original humans came into existence is irrelevant. I agree with that. Okay. Does anybody have any actual questions? Does anybody? I mean, I can post a link. I really, I don't want to talk about random stuff. I just want to clarify what this philosophy is about. If anybody has questions about that, I can post a link. But I wanted to cover a different topic, but I guess I have to get this out the way so that people don't think that I'm saying procreation is ethical so long as it's not done under the state. I'm not saying that. Let me go to chapter 10. And what did I say in chapter 10? Gosh. Okay, this is chapter 9 still. This is so much material in this book that I just can't. Procreation as the root cause of life slavery. I just want to get into the author Schopenhauer said, if the immediate and direct purpose of our life is not suffering, then our existence is the most ill-adapted to its purpose in the world. For it is absurd to suppose that the endless affliction of which the world is everywhere full, and which arises out of the need and distress pertaining essentially to life, should be purposeless and purely accidental. Each individual misfortune, to be sure, seems an exceptional occurrence, but misfortune in general is the rule. I do talk about the asymmetry. Procreation guarantees harm to the person created while providing no genuine benefit. Abstaining from procreation prevents harm while causing no loss to anyone, because no one exists to be deprived. From a moral perspective, abstaining from procreation is always preferable to procreating. I say it right here in chapter 10. I explain the reasons why parents procreate. They're entirely selfish. I talk about consent. So at the end of the day, it's there. I never said that it's justified in a state of nature. I have unequivocally said that it is always unethical. But this is not a coloring book. This is not some simple philosophy that you're just going to grasp in 5 minutes. It's just not. There's some philosophies out there that are more simple, that don't really require a lot of thinking. Procreation is a unilateral imposition. Procreation is a unilateral position made by parents that affects another person comprehensively without the person's input. This violates fundamental principles of autonomy and respect for persons. I talk about, it's all right here. I talk about genetic risk. I talk about environmental risk, psychological risk, social risk, existential risk. The gamble is not justified. Procreation is reckless endangerment. Procreation is violence. Every reason to procreate is selfish. I address the non-identity problem, unjust enrichment. I explain why academic antinatalism fails. Let me just read that part. This is why academic antinatalism fails to prevent procreation. People understand the arguments. They know that procreation imposes suffering without consent. They know that no one can benefit from being brought into existence. They know that abstaining from procreation prevents suffering while harming no one. They procreate anyway because philosophy creates no consequences for selfishness. Democracy cannot end procreation for the same reason democracy cannot end life slavery. Those who benefit from the current system control democratic processes and will not go against their own interests. Academic antagonism has existed for decades, yet procreation continues at an unabated rate. Arguments articulated clearly in philosophy journals reach few people. Even when arguments reach people, they change nothing because understanding arguments is different from being motivated to act on them. People are selfish. They respond to consequences, not to philosophical reasoning. This insight shapes the framework for preventing future procreation. We cannot rely on philosophical persuasion to convince people not to procreate. We must create moral consequences that make procreation costly to those who choose it. The consequences must be strong enough to outweigh the benefits parents receive from procreating. I'll talk about forced heirships, respect for autonomy, forfeiture of exit rights, social delegitimization. I expressly call for voluntary human extinction. I don't think this chapter could be more clear. Let me read this section. Removing the state prohibition on exit rights does not validate procreation. Removing the state prohibition on a right to a peaceful exit does not make procreation acceptable. Parents who impose existence remain morally culpable of that imposition regardless of whether the right to exit becomes available. The state's crime, using violence to prevent exit, is separate from the parent's crime. Both crimes require redress. Demanding that the state stop using violence is an anarchist demand for less state control. It is not an excuse to procreate. All right, y'all. It's there. It's all in the book. I don't know what other questions you all have, but it's there. So, suffice it to say, procreation is never justified. It is never ethical. But I'm focusing on rights. I'm focusing on the fact that the state is prohibiting your right to medical assistance in dying. Just focusing on ethics alone is not going to get you there. So I have posted the link. I don't know if anybody wants to come up. Yes, I did answer the question. And I have answered it several times in the past. I don't. Okay, I don't think anybody's coming up, but that's fine. Hopefully we can move on because I do have other topics that I want to discuss. So I hope I clarified it for those who think that I'm excusing procreation. I'm not. Again, I would encourage you to go back and read the book. Reading is fundamental. Let me. Wait a minute. Okay. Hello.
What's up?
Not much.
Yeah. So I get that procreation is bad under all circumstances, but I feel like I've heard you say before in the past that I feel like I've heard you say that if there was, or if the state actually upheld their social contract and followed their own standards, you might not be an anarchist. Was that something that I heard correctly?
No,
or
I'm saying that's what led me to become an anarchist in the first place, is that there is no legitimate social contract. We have duties, but we have no rights.
okay. And then my next question would be that um you see, I know you say that life procreation is bad under all cases, but what are what are we imposing on people? Because from my paradigm, life is eternal, and in order for life to experience this form, it has to come from life or something similar, some type of awareness that um, is like a predecessor to the body or the form. Because, as I told Soccer Star, from nothing, nothing comes. So this means that it's not just the sperm and the egg coming together to make a new form of consciousness. The consciousness exists eternally, and if it was a new form of consciousness that's being born in that moment, then maybe I would ju- uh, be in alignment with life abolitionism, because that would imply that we live in an inherently predatory universe which is at war with itself and wages that war at our expense. But since I don't think that is the case, and the reason I don't think that is the case is because natural law exists, I don't think that not procreating is going to actually solve anything.
How is it not going to solve anything? What do you mean by that?
Because if we are these eternal life essences, then we would essentially just be missing out on a crucial experience that we should be having.
See, I don't believe in
Um,
mysticism. I don't believe so, that part has to be established. That there was a sentient soul who wanted to be brought into existence, who consented to be brought into existence, and that after being brought into existence, our soul was being deprived of something.
well, I do talk
Because
about this.
because if you believe that, then your soul could already experience whatever it was experiencing before it was trapped into a human body.
Well, I do talk about this in my philosophy, and what it comes down to, I synthesize it with a physics mathematical framework that posits existence is strands of electromagnetism which wrap around each other to form the totality of existence. And then this totality of existence just pinches out spaces for itself so that it could experience something other than the totality of existence. So, what that means is that this place that we lived before is literally everything happening at once. It's like a superposition. But this place is a singular position within that superposition that we are actively living out.
So, do you care about the individual at all? Do you care? Because it seems like you're more focusing on life as a continuum, or like something that is like based in mysticism. And like, what about the actual human being who suffers? Does that human being actually matter?
Yes,
I don't
the
hear you
human,
talking about that at all. You're just talking about life. Like life is an in unto itself. It's not.
the suffering that humans cause for themselves, I'm saying, are just going to transfer over to this other world or other places because we failed to address the root cause of the problem, which is to
The
live
root
in
cause of it is
harmony.
procreation. They don't experience any suffering until they're brought into the material world.
Yes, I would suppose there is no suffering within the total space.
So, can you give me another way to completely eliminate suffering and death?
Well, there is no death. The death process is just our essence leaving this body, which, depending on how you die, could be dramatic or it could be peaceful. But most people, I think, go traumatically. So when
Okay, but for most people don't see it that way. They do see death as being a real death. They are terrified of dying. If you were to hold a gun to the head, they would start crying and weep and pleading. So
and
they
this is
are terrified of dying, and yet parents impose it on their children anyway.
This is because of the conditioning of the state and religion, which put fear into people's minds so that they can be more easily controlled. Because if they fear death,
How does that change anything? You're telling me because whether it's because of this or that, they still have this fear and they don't want to die.
it changes that because the government is unnatural. These religions are unnatural. And if we remove the unnatural obstacle, the fear of death would greatly diminish.
I don't think that changes anything either. Yes, the government is unnatural, but it still controls everything.
Again, if the obstacle was removed, which I know you see as a monumental, Herculean, possibly impossible task, but I would say that it is conceivable that we can have a life without the government. It has happened in the past. So
No,
there's
the
a
people
chance that it
want.
could happen again.
They want this. They're natural slaves. They want to be controlled. That's what I wanted to cover today, but I ended up having to do this to explain it to people. But I had a much more interesting topic. I guess I'll have to do that some other time.
Well, we could talk about that right now if you want. You know, that's a
No,
huge
because
part.
I need to set it up, and I don't want to just like jump in. I don't want to mix it up because then people may not even get the whole. That needs to be a separate live stream.
Well, okay, that's fair, but oh, did I do something? Okay, I'm still here. But basically, it comes down to the state is unnatural, and the state relies upon people to empower it, and people procreating gives the state power because the state can take children and grow them into efficient state cogs within the state machine. So I get that I forget exactly what you call it, but I'm just going to use the phrasing rebellion through demographics approach is not bad. And as I state, that most people, I don't think, are very good parents, nor do they have good reasons to bring children into the world.
There is no good reason to bring someone into the world. And even if they are good parents, nobody deserves to be enslaved to the state.
Yes. So
So nobody should procreate. Nobody. It's not about the parents. It's about the child. The child does not deserve this hellscape.
but the child is essentially a blank canvas. They could be a status, or they could be
And no matter.
anarchists.
Okay, I'm an anarchist. I'm still oppressed by the state. What difference does it make?
Well, if the population reaches, excuse me, if the population reaches a critical mass, then the state will lose power. You see, just imagine if, I don't know the exact percentage of people that believe in the state and vote. So we're just going to say 75%.
No, it's way higher than that. It's more like 99%.
I don't know about that.
Even the libertarians believe in the state. The anarchists are not even 1% of the population.
Well, I look at libertarians as like a stepping stone to anarchism. They're just not quite ready to make the full jump.
No, libertarians are hardcore capitalists. They rely on the state's currency. They rely on the state's violence to maintain their property rights.
I I agree that they
So libertarians don't want to dismantle the state.
which is why I
They,
say that they're a good stepping stone between hard statism and anarchism, because I don't think that we're going to get anarchism to spring up overnight. It's got to
I
be like
think libertarianism is a contradiction. They're anarcho-capitalists, but you can't be an anarchist and a capitalist at the same time.
yeah. Um, well, capitalism, as far as I know, is just free market trading.
It's not okay. Well, anarchists don't even use the term free market. We use the term free market for the reason that I just stated, that the free market still depends on government infrastructure. It depends on the government currency. It depends on state-created property rights. It depends on a regulation of the market. So there is no such thing as a free market. There's only a free market where the state just gets out the way and allow people to trade without any interference.
Yes, what it should be, and that would be a. You see, what I think should happen is that gradually, as the generations go along, the government scales down further and further. So, if we did get the government to do that and not interfere in the markets, which they do that now. We have crony capitalism. Then that could be a good step towards raising a generation that gets rid of the state entirely.
So, I mean, as an anarchist, I'm assuming you're against force because that's what anarchy means, right? You're against hierarchy and violence, right?
Yes, no
So, if you're against,
masters or slaves.
so if you're against force, how do you force someone to exist?
Are you there? I think LA just had a audio problem. Or was it
Without
me?
their consent?
Could you repeat what you just said? There was some sort of
If,
audio glitch.
if you're an anarchist and you're against force, how do you justify forcing someone to exist against their will?
Well, I see. As far as I can tell, our will intends to be here because we can experience a limited coordinate of potential where the essence takes on a particular form, which is an experience that we could not have.
So you're basically saying that the individual does not know what they actually want, because I'm telling you right now that I do not consent and I did not want to be brought into existence. So I don't know what I want, and my parents knew what I wanted better than I did.
Well, it's not necessarily your parents. However, I do think that the cycle of reincarnation is a thing, and that individuals can break the cycle of reincarnation if they live a life of compassion and based in natural law and the principles of that.
Okay, I have not had a life of compassion. I've had a life of apathy and cruelty. Where's this life of compassion that you're talking about?
Well, I'm saying for the individual to be compassionate. That's what I'm saying.
So basically, you're saying that that's not what it is right now, but you're saying that somewhere down the pipeline, there's a potential for this, and then humans should continue to be sacrificed in order to get to that potentiality. That all these other people should suffer and die because you believe that in the future humans will evolve to be more compassionate and more anarchist.
It's not about sacrificing, it's about the experience. Okay, so we can think of it like this. So, like, what is the human condition? The human condition, very simply put, is just the sum total of all human actions throughout the world and how they affect each other in an interconnected web of experience. And so the human condition can basically only manifest in two ways because of how the collective treats itself. It can either manifest as freedom or it could manifest as slavery. And right now, the human condition is in a state of slavery because the collective does not respect each other.
It doesn't sound like you have personally experienced any real state oppression. Because I think if you had experienced it, your outlook would be a little bit different. You're making it sound like it's theoretical. Theoretical is something in the abstract. It's like, no, some of us are living under state oppression every day. It's not something like, it's like you're not accounting for that. You're just making it seem like it's a choice that you could just choose to be free, or I don't know what you think. What is your solution for people like me who are anarchists, but we're still trapped in a world of state oppression?
Well, it's just an unfortunate burden that we have to bear because we live in an interconnected experience.
Why should we have to bear it? We don't have to, though. That's the point.
Well, we could go live in the woods. That would probably be about the furthest we can go to not bear it. But
we could not procreate in the first place, and we could decriminalize medical assistance in dying.
And those are potential solutions. But one thing I was thinking about MAID is that, it has potential to be hijacked or potentially co-opted by state agents or perhaps even hardcore religious groups.
I don't believe that. If that were the case, then they wouldn't be deploying every tool in their arsenal to try to prevent it from happening.
Well, that's because they have benefits to gain right now from people giving the medical system money and keeping them alive through perpetual treatment. But there could be some other groups that come along after MAID gets passed, and they go to. They pose themselves as psychologists or people who care, and they encourage people to maybe go along the MAID route, and maybe they actually have other options, and so it's not really their thought telling them to take the MAID. It's these other people who they chose to listen to and their thoughts telling them to do it. And then from there's no changing your mind. You go through with it.
I don't really. I mean, at the end of the day, why is there so much concern about that, but there's no concern about the compulsion of procreation? What about that? Because none of those children consented to being brought into existence. There was no manipulation. This is pure force, where you force someone to exist. And yet nobody's talking about that. They want to focus. They want to focus on the back end, that maybe somebody might be vulnerable and be talked into. I've already created an entire proposal that already addresses that, so I don't see that as being a legitimate concern.
Well, I mean, that's just something that I would look out for because if you think that you have some sort of countermeasure or safety net in place, to prevent these people from convincing, uh, non-depressed, healthy people who might not have any medical problems to off themselves,
Well,
And
where are the
I
safety
mean,
measures for those who procreate and then their children don't want to be here? Where are those safety measures?
well, those can never exist
Yes,
because
yes, there is. They could exist.
you mean like abortions
No, I'm talking about
or
those because they
condoms?
say that life is a gift, that life is so wonderful, but then you live life and you see that it's a hellscape. Where are the safety measures for those people who don't want to be here?
If you're, what kind of safety measures are you talking? Are you talking about like
I
spiritual
already addressed it
safety
in my book.
measures?
It's all there. I don't. I mean,
Well, I mean, are you talking about spiritual safety measures or legal safety measures? Because if you're
safety
talking about
measures. They okay. First of
legal,
all, if they made the bottom line is that they made a mistake. They procreated and they assumed that you were going to enjoy life, and then you didn't. So now there needs to be some type of redress. Now they should get medical assistance in dying. If they choose to continue existing, then they should get an inheritance. They should get socialism. Their rights should be respected. And they actually should own their lives to the extent that it is possible under the state.
the only way that will happen is if the state stops creating such impersonal relationships in people's lives. For example, no one, like, inheritance is something the state goes for. I'm pretty sure that's something socialism even will try to take. But the state will just basically outsource basic human interaction to itself to have this faithless monopoly on violence and utility solve people's problems. So if we got more personal relationships and the people helping each other more, then that would inherently already make life more worth living because the people are restoring value to their own lives.
No, no. I think what we need is the right to be left alone. I don't need more interactions. I need less interactions. I need people to get out of my business, stop trying to control my life, and then I'll be perfectly fine. Because all of my stress is caused by people making my life a living hell. It's not caused because I don't have enough interactions with other people.
I agree with what you just said. It's all about fundamentally leaving people alone. And this is what personal relationship will create. It will create obvious boundaries within people's lives instead of artificial boundaries that the state creates through its means of violence. So if we get rid of the state, I don't see any reason to abolish law.
Do you really believe that the public wants to get rid of the state?
I think they would rather get rid of the state than face extinction.
No, no. You know what? I'm not going to do it today, but I'm going to explain some stuff that I really need to get off my chest. Um, yeah, I'm not going to give it away because I think people will actually enjoy the live stream. It'll actually motivate people to think. But yeah, there's no evidence that people want to get rid of. They actually want more state power. Their only issue is that they want their leaders in power. So it's a left versus right thing. They think the Republicans are evil, the Democrats are good, or vice versa. It's not as if they actually want to get rid of the state. They just want the other side out of power. And once their side is in power, they're perfectly fine making everybody else's lives a living hell. So I can't really get with this two-party duopoly because Neither side supports my rights. Neither of them supports natural rights. The Democrats are just as oppressive as the Republicans. Kamala Harris was the only presidential candidate who did not support MAID under any circumstance. Trump supported it with psychological assessment. Jill Stein, Oliver Chase, all of them except for Kamala Harris. And she's supposed to be the damn progressive. So no, they do not. I don't. I mean, I was a political science major. I used to be really into politics, but I still have a basic knowledge of the way the system works. And no, they do not want to dismantle the state. Did you see when they had the government shut down? Did you see all of those women on TikTok crying because their SNAP benefits were? Who the hell is calling me? This one. No, I'm not going to take that. I think I know who that is. I enrolled in this stupid program and I didn't realize this was a private institution and my veterans benefits are not going to cover it. So now I'm dropping my classes. I think they're calling me to try to talk me out of it. I'm not paying that shit. I don't want any more student loan debt.
You got to make your own stand, LA, but I think you know that. Look, I understand what you're saying, that people have been conditioned to accept states. When you break down the word government etymologically, it literally means mind control, to control or pilot the mind.
Well, that's what I'm going to talk about. That's exactly what I'm going to talk about.
Well, you can break the mind control. It's not all powerful. It just will take time to undo. And I don't see it happening in our lifetimes personally, but
then if it doesn't happen during my lifetime, then it does me no good. I don't care about what happens after I'm dead. I want to see it happen during my lifetime. And if I can't see it, then I want MAID.
Well, I guess that's fair, but expecting it to happen during our lifetimes, I think, is unrealistic.
I already know it's not going to happen during my lifetime, but I can get MAID during my lifetime. Why should I have to suffer because they're too slow to act? It's not my fault. I'm not beholden to this system. I'm an individual. If they want to be slow, they can drag their feet all they want. I'm not beholden to it's like they're ignorant. They don't want to wake up. And maybe they will eventually wake up. I don't give a shit what they do after I'm dead. That doesn't benefit me.
Well, I mean, it would benefit you if you happen to be unfortunate enough to reincarnate. Then it would definitely benefit if the people stopped supporting the state or not.
I don't believe in reincarnation.
Well, that's fair, but I thought you were adopting a Gnostic view.
I don't believe in that literally. To me, it's allegorical. It's just a recycling of energy. It's not as if your actual consciousness is reborn and put into another body. I don't believe that at all.
So what is the energy?
What is the what?
You just said it's a recycling of energy. So what is this energy that's in our body now?
The energy was already here. The energy is infinite. It just recycles itself. Fire is energy. Heat is energy. Like the wind is energy. That gets recycled, but that doesn't mean that it's sentient. That's not the same thing.
Um, so if the energy is in your body and it's able to experience and move about, after you die, you just think the energy dissipates and goes back to the medium of energy that is ever present.
No, the energy gets recycled, but my consciousness does not get recycled. My consciousness dies.
Okay. Well, at least there's something that
Carl
treats
Jung explained
the
this.
body.
Are you like? Have you looked into what Carl Jung said about death?
I don't think I have.
I did a live stream about it like a long time ago, but I can't even find that live stream. Yeah, Carl Jung talked about what the soul means. He talked about death. He talked about energy. There is no actual soul. It's just your consciousness.
Yeah, you call it whatever you want, but does he say the consciousness dies upon death?
Yes, it's a real death. It's not. It's not like your consciousness gets reborn. No, your consciousness dies and the energy gets recycled.
All right. Um, there's someone in the comments saying they think my etymology is fake on government. What do you think
Yeah,
of
I'm
my
trying to figure out
etymology?
what you. I'm trying to figure out how you justify enslaving a child to the state, and you're saying
What am I saying?
that they can choose to be an anarchist, but that doesn't change anything.
Well, it would change stuff for them because if, uh, let's say, they took an enlightened path, for example, not just an anarchist path, then they could essentially transcend out of this place their consciousness, excuse me, their consciousness, which I don't think dies. I don't think that has a death. Um, and they won't be trapped in the reincarnation cycle anymore.
Why do they have to transcend something that they shouldn't been have? They should have been put in the first place.
It is a learning experience. It's about, it's basically about, it's about dwelling in this world of filth and decay and entropy and learning to find the good things in it and carry our choices with us throughout life and making the right choices as well. And then doing that, we will essentially align our hearts and our brain. By aligning our heart and our brain, we will live a better life and make better choices and own those choices. And then this will allow us to essentially transcend. And this is the symbolism of the Egyptian dung beetle, which is an animal which literally carries its crap. It's also supposed to be the pound for pound strongest animal on the earth. It carries its crap with it everywhere it goes, and this is its home, this is its life. And in Egyptian symbology, the beetle is supposed to represent the brain. It looks just like a brain from the top view. And it also, there is the heart scarab as well. And the heart scarab has the scarab opening its wings, which just basically means if we learn to dwell in this world of crap, essentially owning our choices and carrying them with us throughout life, we'll get our wings, so to speak.
Um, yeah. I just don't believe in that literally. I like that's fine. I don't. I mean, I'm not going to try to like take away whatever hope people have. I think false hope is actually dangerous because people will make bad decisions thinking that there's going to be a good outcome. And when people have false hope, they do tend to procreate because they think their children are going to have a good future, and they're not in control of it. I think it's actually better to err on the side of caution and be pessimistic. I really don't see any utility in being optimistic.
Well, it's just it's just in it. My optimism is mostly just rooted in natural law.
I don't think natural law is optimistic. I really don't.
Well, I think that it is. I think that if people understood it, they wouldn't need the government or the state to basically act as the middleman for them between natural law and everyone else.
I don't. I mean, I'm not sure who you hang around with. Like, did you talk to regular people? Because if you talk to regular people, they have a completely different paradigm. They, in no way, shape, or form, are trying to get rid of the state. Um,
I know this. And this is why I like talking to you, LA, because I've noticed on these channels, there's pretty much, I'm just going to say, there seems to be just two sides. There's people who are statists and support the mainstream status quo of things, whether it's religion or whatever else. And then there's people who challenge them. And we are people who like challenge them, at least on these panels. I think you do more than I do.
their solution for everything is to make it illegal. So, yes, they want to go to the state. There's people who want to make it illegal to consume animal products. They want to make it illegal to, well, to have same-sex marriage. You see that they went back to criminalizing abortion, right? Um, they use the state to do their dirty work. They can't. They don't want to do the. They don't want to inflict the violence themselves, so they outsource it to the state. So they'll just form their mobs, and if they get a majority, then they get their way. They don't care about individual freedom at all. They just care about winning. That my side won. We're in power right now, and we're going to make everybody's life a living hell. And it's this whole like pendulum swinging where this side wins, the other side wins, and then it's the same bullshit over and over again. And then nothing really changes because the system itself is flawed. This
Well,
two-party duopoly, it needs to be dismantled.
there is actually a change. This economist I like, he's like an anarchist, a scholar. His name's Robert Higgs. And he talks about the ratchet effect, and he just talks about how basically when there's a crisis or an emergency or a time of strife, the state will use this to justify getting more power through some emergency act or buildup of the military or something. And then once the emergency is resolved, the state does not relinquish the powers that they were given to solve the emergency. And he calls this the ratchet effect because the ratchet can only twist one way tighter and tighter. So essentially, as he says, over time the people become more broken, as in like you break an animal so they don't go pee inside or something. So they just become more and more conditioned to the state and their abuse of power to solve um, crises, and them never actually giving up the power like they should. And it's really a form of encroachment, which is just slowly moving the line of attack without the people noticing. So this is a big reason why we're where we're at today, is because of things like the ratchet effect.
I'm just wondering if the person who asked me the question is actually here, if they're even listening. I don't know, but
Yeah, I think it was Soccer Star who asked you the question. Did I
it
respond?
was, it
I
was somebody.
responded.
I think Soccer Star actually understands my philosophy better than most. Hi, Patsy. But anyway, I appreciate you coming up. I just wanted to clarify that because a lot of people are getting that misunderstanding that I'm not saying that procreation is ever justified. I'm just addressing a specific condition of enslavement to the state.
The person who asked you was Dark Rise. I don't
Okay.
know if they're here. But before I go, I just want to mention that that person who hosted you for the debates, Beth of Culture Corrections, I made a video on her because I was on her panel. And she said all these things, and everything she said she was wrong about. And it's just it's these people who protect the status quo. Because I mentioned that, people before civilization, they lived better than how we do now. They were more free, they were more balanced, they only had to answer to each other and the survival needs of the group, and that's how they answered to each other. But you mention this to people, and they get almost like they get offended that the ancestors lived better than we do now, and they'll jump to defend their state. They'll jump to defend their religion. She said like five. She said like five claims, and I point out how every claim she says is factually wrong. It's insanity.
And
But I
that's
just
why
wanted to
when
point
I
that.
did that debate, I specifically requested that Tiffman be the moderator because he doesn't allow people to do all that stuff, the interruptions and the piling on. Like, if you ever do a debate with somebody, I would highly recommend using Tiffman to be the moderator.
Yeah, he was there too. He sounded even dumber than Beth. I hate to say, but he's there on the video too, looking not very. He does not look very good, to say that. It wasn't long before 10th Man jumped to the ad homs of like, you're like the people who can't even hold down a job. You got a criminal record.
Well, yeah, but when he's moderating, he's more impartial. Um, he'll actually hold his personal commentary and just ask questions.
All right, well that's fair. But anyway, I just wanted to say that. It was good talking.
All right, you have a good one.
You as well.
All right, y'all. Have a good day.